All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first ever reunion experience wine tasting. And this is featuring the wines of Tobin James Cellars. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tobin and his partner Claire in just a little bit. But I just wanted to, number one, just welcome all of you. Thank you for taking time to sort of connect with the college, connect with your class. We're going to go through the agenda in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to give everybody, first off, my name is Chris Peltier. I'm a pediatrician here in Cincinnati, and I am from the class of 1995. You can see my lovely picture from 1991 when I started medical school there. I'm currently have the honor of serving as the president of the Alumni Council. And really, the impetus for this experience was the fact that, about 11 months ago, we were all planning on getting together in Cincinnati and celebrating our class reunions. And unfortunately, we all know what happened. And we've lived through the last year and had its ups and downs, but we wanted to at least offer something, although it's not in person right now, for those classes to at least get together to share some social time and fellowship as a group, and then also a chance to sort of break up into small groups and do some reminiscing and catching up. So overall, that's sort of the agenda of the evening. We have some special guests this evening that I will introduce in a little bit more detail, but you can see their pictures. We're going to hear from the Dean of the College of Medicine, Dr. Annie Flack. We're going to hear from Byron Gustin, who represents the Golden Class of 1970. And then really the stars of our show, who I'll introduce in a few minutes, are Toby Shumrick and Claire Silver, co-owners of Tobin James Cellars. Next slide, please. All right, so for those of you, whether this is your first Zoom call or your 10,000th Zoom call, we're just going to kind of go over some Zoom etiquettes. So it's kind of starting at the top of the screen here. You'll see that in the upper right-hand corner is the view icon. If you click that, if you want, probably the easiest way to see pictures of everybody, and we would encourage all of you to have your cameras on, even if you're eating food. I've been snacking on grapes for the last half hour and people have been watching me eat. So we want to see your faces. We want to connect with you. So the easiest way to see everybody is to do the gallery view. And then right now, though, while we are having some presentations, we would ask that you would mute your mic. So in the lower left corner along the bottom there is the microphone icon. And if you click on it, there'll be a red slash that goes through that. And that means that you are muted. So but when you're going to speak, and there will be times for that, we would ask that you unmute. And obviously in the small groups, our breakout classes, we're going to have you unmute. Please keep your video on. If you wish, we would love to see your faces. So please have your video on. Throughout the wine tasting presentation tonight, if you have a question for Toby or Claire, please put them in the chat box and I'm going to sort of moderate that and present them questions. We're going to sample 4 wines that Toby and Claire are going to walk us through and give us some background on. And if you have questions either about those wines or just wine in general, maybe sort of their specific winery, please put those in the chat box and I will make sure that we get those questions answered. And then at the very end of the evening, so we're going to do our large group, going to do the wine tasting, then we're going to break up into Zoom breakout rooms. And don't worry, we will make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. We'll get everybody to their correct Zoom rooms. And then we'll have about 45 minutes for everybody to catch up, talk. There's going to be a foundation staff member that's going to sort of be in the room, sort of kind of moderating it and sort of helping things along technically. But it's really a chance for us to just connect and sort of catch up and see how everybody's doing. And then at the end of those 45 minutes, we're going to come back for just a few minutes of wrap up. If you need to leave the meeting at any point, obviously you can click the red leave button that's in the bottom right-hand corner there. So we're going to do the wine tasting in a few minutes. A couple highlights. Byron Gustin is going to have a special toast for the class of 50, class of 1970. And I get the honor of toasting my class of 1995 for our 25th silver anniversary.
Audio. I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great,
Well,
perfect. Okay,
last time I just
so
put, it just
and
came
I'm just going to
on.
remind everybody for sort of this portion, if you guys would all maybe mute your microphones, that would be fabulous, just so we cut out any background noise. We have about 60 participants, so we just trying to limit our background noise. So Mary Jo, anything else that we need to say before I introduce Dean Falak?
No, I think you about covered it. Thank you so much, Chris. And we can go ahead and start with the program.
Great, and I would be remiss before I introduce Dean Falak to really thank and acknowledge the entire College of Medicine alumni and foundation staff, but especially Mary Jo Philhauer. This was really her idea. She actually sent me a message several months ago and kind of asked me what I thought, and this has really been her brainchild. So special thanks to her, because without her, this definitely wouldn't have happened. But obviously, all of the other staff that have helped with this and are helping out tonight. So thank you, Mary Jo, and the foundation staff. So great job as always. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Andy Falak, who's going to sort of welcome everybody and just give some welcome opening thoughts. Andy?
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you this evening to the Alumni Association wine tasting event. And it's indeed a privilege to serve as a dean at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. One of the perks of this job is the opportunity to interact with the graduates of the college, our alumni. UCOM has a great impact on the city of Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, the entire country, and throughout the world, because of the tremendous work that you do in caring for patients, innovating through research, teaching the next generation of practitioners, and serving your communities. This year has been quite a challenge for all of us. Our faculty, staff, and students have risen to the occasion and shown remarkable strength and resilience, just as each of you has. Let me extend my deepest sense of gratitude for all that you do and for how well you represent the UC College of Medicine. Thank you. And I'd like to take just a few minutes to introduce a few people who are with us today. You can hold your applause until I recognize them all, which is usually what I would say in a live session. You can clap all you want right now after every one of them in your own little room there like that. First is Mark Gebhardt from the class of 75. Mark was a recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award in 1999. I want to recognize our alumni class representatives for keeping you, their classmates, connected. We have Ben Yamaguchi from the class of 1960. And I remember Ben when I first went out to practice in Ripley, Ohio, and Ben would cover Brown County Hospital out there. So Ben and I go back a long way, 43 years for that. And we have Byron Gustin from the Golden Class of 1970. This past year, the College of Medicine received a very generous gift of $6.9 million for scholarships that will provide full four-year scholarships to 10 students this year and for each of the next 3 years. The scholarship is named the Webster Gustin Medical Scholarship in honor of two UCOM graduates, Warren Webster and Byron Gustin. That's the kind of impact our alumni have. And I had to remind Byron that when I came to town as a family medicine resident in 1978, I spent some time in Byron's office as a rotating through cardiology. We have John Keefe, class of 1975, Patty Gorey, 1980, Jonathan Bernstein, 1985. And one of the things that I found out is that Jonathan Bernstein's father grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, not more than a few blocks from where I lived. And he went to the same grammar school, PS number 23 in Jersey City that I did. Sabrina Leach from the class of 1990, Chris Peltier from 1995, and Chris is graciously serving as our host this evening, and Sally Woods from the class of 2015. Thank you all for your continued support of the College of Medicine. I also want to give a special thanks to Greg Gruwon. I know he signed up for this. I don't know if he's signed on yet. Yesterday, we announced the appointment of a new chair for the Department of Internal Medicine. Greg is going to be stepping down from that position after serving for 10 years. And I want to personally thank him for all that he has done for the college and for the great job that he did. I want to acknowledge that you, as graduates of the classes of years ending in 0 or 5, had your reunions canceled as a direct result, as Chris said, of the coronavirus pandemic. As he also said, our fantastic alumni office team is continuing to work to develop programs that will appropriately honor those whose reunions were canceled. Mark your calendars for November 5th to 6th, 2021 for the new date for the next in-person reunion. And Mary Jo will get more information out to you over the next several months to do that. I'm also pleased to note that we've recently made the decision to have an in-person Honors Day, medical school graduation on May 23rd at the Fifth Third Arena on campus. The program will be modified a bit as we follow appropriate distancing and masking guidelines as we welcome another graduating class into the UCOM Alumni Association. Tomorrow is a special day for them. It's match day. And our students are going to be celebrating a very successful match as they find out where they're heading for the next phase of their careers. Finally, I'd like to thank Toby Shumrick for hosting this event for the wine tasting part. I, like many of you, had the opportunity to know and interact with Don Shumrick, a longtime faculty member who served as a chair of otolaryngology. We greatly appreciate Toby and his team for their assistance with this program. I look forward to hearing about and tasting the great wines from Tobin James Cellars. Again, thank you for your continued support of the College of Medicine. I think it's now time to try some wine. Back to you, Chris.
Great, thanks, Andy. And just really want to shout out to Andy and the Dean's office and all of the faculty that over the last year that have just really, all of you that are in practice know what this last year has been like. And, for those of you that work with medical students know sort of the toll when a year ago, all of the students got pulled from clinical rotations and really were out for about 3 months, and just really how quickly the college adapted. I know from pediatrics, we immediately sort of developed a virtual online curriculum until we could get them back into rotation. So I've been just thrilled with the college's response and adaptations to coronavirus. So thank you, Andy. All right, it is time to get to the main event. It is my pleasure to introduce our sommeliers this evening. Toby Shumrick is no stranger to Cincinnati, and he's closely tied to the UC College of Medicine. As Andy said, Toby's father, Donald Shumrick, was the founder and first chair for the UC Department of Otolaryngology Head and Neck Surgery. Toby is also one of 9 children, but he is the only one to have ventured beyond his roots. That's a very Cincinnati thing, isn't it? His first stop was the family vineyard in Indiana. However, California has been his home state for 3 decades. Making outstanding wine is in Toby's blood. It all started with an extra 6 ton of grapes that a winery could not accept and process. Tobin, or Toby as he's known to his friends and family, a lowly assistant winemaker at the time, asked the owner of the winery if he could have the grapes and make wine out of them for himself. The owner replied, "Sure, kid, knock yourself out." A year and a half later, gold medals began pouring in for Toby's first Zinfandel, the 1985 Blue Moon Zin. After making his wines at another local winery for a few years and tasting and selling them out of a local wine shop in town, Toby finally took the plunge and built Tobin James Cellars in 1993. Built from the ground up on the site of an old stagecoach stop, it might seem more natural to stroll into the old-fashioned Western-style saloon, place your booted foot on the brass rail of the bar, and order a shot of whiskey from the bartender. However, in the Tobin James tasting room, award-winning wines are poured from behind the grand, antique 1860s Brunswick mahogany bar from Blue Line, Missouri. Toby is a friend to the college, to the UC Foundation development team, and he is one heck of an outstanding human and philanthropist. Please welcome founder and owner of Tobin James Cellars, Toby Shumrick, and his co-owner, Claire Silver. Toby and Claire, welcome.
Thanks for inviting us to do this. It's one of I've done thousands of winemaker dinners and wine tastings all over the country, but this is my first Zoom one, so I'm excited to do this. I'm a little lagging in the technology department, but what's exciting about this, I didn't graduate UC, but I went 2 years, and that's when I met a winemaker from Paso Robles in Cincinnati. And I want to thank my dad being a doctor, because we had a vineyard, but half the family are doctors and half are in the wine business. And I choose the wine business because my dad, when I was, I don't know, 8 or 10, would take me on rounds. And, I would see the guy that fell off his motorcycle going 100 miles an hour. And I said, no, I don't think the doctor thing is for me. So I went into the wine business, and thank God I did, because it's been a wonderful experience for my family and myself. And we kind of look at ourselves as wine doctors. We have patients that are Cabernets, and some are fine or doing good, but we always have to babysit the wines and look after them and treat them, if you would, and we're babysitters. And so we're kind of in the same business, but we don't have the blood involved like you guys do. So I guess we will pour the first wine now. Do you guys want to go right into the first wine, the Chardonnay?
Yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we are going to have a special guest analysis after we pour. If you want to have maybe a few words about it, and then we're going to ask Dean Falak to sort of give us his thoughts on the Chardonnay.
Okay, well, first, what's exciting is, as you see on our label, there's the sun. Basically, if you really think about it, this is bottled sunshine, and that's what we do in California, obviously. And you'll taste the wine. The sun made it, really. We just kind of babysat it and turned it into what it is. And you'll taste this wine. It has it's from Monterey County, where it's a little cooler. It's a little too hot in Paso. But a lot of people don't understand that you don't have to make. Very few wineries only make wine off the grapes they have around their vineyard. They go to different areas. Certain plants won't grow, in different climates, like where we are by the ocean, like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay might grow better there because they're cooler. But I think you'll see this wine has a lot of good fruit, a lot of pineapple, some grapefruit. Claire, would you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so Toby is right about our Chardonnays. We do source them from the cooler climates of Monterey, because we feel like that's the best expression of the Chardonnay that comes through. You'll get more of a zesty wine. You'll get, more of a refreshing wine, which this totally is. This is our unoaked Chardonnay. It's done on stainless steel. And so it retains so much freshness and vibrance. It's got, like Toby said, the pineapple. You get, really nice lemon zest on it.
Very food friendly. Goes with just about any food.
All right, Dean Falak, we're going to ask you to sort of give your impression and thoughts on the Chardonnay.
I think I'm just going to echo a lot of what they just said. I am not much of a Chardonnay fan usually. For that, it's not one of my favorite blends, but I think crisp and refreshing. And what I can really notice in here is more than anything is the grapefruit taste. Like that one, it really comes out on this one. It's really like a clean, softer type wine for me, like that. So that's what it feels like to me, is a cleaner, softer, grapefruity, citrusy type wine, like that.
Great. So I remind everyone to, if you have a question or you have a comment about the first wine, please put it in the chat box. And we've got delicious and smooth. And I like the fact that it's a California Chardonnay without lots of oak. I don't know if Toby or Claire want to comment on that.
We do make another style Chardonnay besides our Radiance. We do make a really beautiful Melolactic fermented Chardonnay, which means it's very creamy. You guys are all scientists, the malic acid turns into lactic acid, so it makes it creamy. And we do ferment that on brand new French oak barrels, and they age on the lees in the French oak barrels. So that one does have more of an oak profile to it. And both of them are just amazing wines. So no matter which style of Chardonnay you prefer, you're gonna love our Chardonnays.
You guys, can I also remind you that you're gonna taste 4 wines, but in a normal setting, you would open these with a table of food, with a plate of food. So you have to remind yourself that wine wine makes food better and food makes wine better. They complement each other. So just remind yourself that, you try it and they say this would go with a good pasta dish, or try to imagine, since maybe everybody's got a plate of food in front of them. I don't know.
Who has oysters? You got oysters.
I've been snacking on grapes since about 5:30, and it goes very well with the grapes, very fruity. So I'm going to go off script, and if anybody has a question, you can feel free to unmute. And we're a small enough group that I think we can manage that. So if anybody has a question about the Chardonnay, please feel free to unmute and ask Toby or Claire, or if you just want to tell them how good it is, that's good too.
It starts apple light, but yeah, you do get a lot of green apple. Yes.
Yeah, and Karen, I agree. I think, and somebody else had said fish. I think Kim Francis had mentioned fish too. So Karen had mentioned about salmon too. I agree.
We're talking about wines, but what's important is where they're from. Paso Robles, California, which when I came out here 40 years ago and I said I had a winery in Paso Robles, they go, "Oh, you have a winery in Texas?" And I was like, "No, that's El Paso. This is Paso Robles, California." But now I'm sure a lot of the people that are watching or on the Zoom meeting here are probably familiar with Paso Robles now. So it was we've gone from nobody heard of us, and now we're making famous wines. But the region that a wine's made in is very critical. And I think maybe if people, we're 200 miles south of San Francisco, but we're 200 miles north of Los Angeles. We're below Monterey, but we're above Santa Barbara County. We're right in the middle, San Luis Obispo County, with Hearst Castle, and it's really an amazing place. And we would tell anybody to come visit it. There's plenty to do, and there's ocean and great wines. There's, I think, about 300 wineries in Paso Robles right now, so you're never going to go thirsty. That's for sure.
It pretty much, Paso Robles has the most perfect weather, the perfect, diurnal swings, the soils, the terroir, very different. That makes Paso Robles wine stand out from other regions, and we're very consistent. So that makes us feel good. It's a win-win because our vintages always come out really good. They're never bad. So thank God for Paso Robles and where we make our wines.
Toby and Claire, there's a question from one of my classmates, Dave Dela. His wife wants to know, what is the ideal aging for your Chardonnay before you open the bottle?
Okay, this is a very good question, and I'd like to address, maybe like all wines, the older it gets, that doesn't mean the better it gets. That's wine kind of does a thing where it goes up and then it comes down. A wine, when it gets too old, it runs out of fruit. But on Chardonnays, I like wines that are, I like any wine I drink to be on the youthful side. But as a winemaker, I'm used to drinking wine out of buckets and hoses and wine that's not very old. So, but on this Chardonnay here, you definitely 6 months after it's in, we age it about 6 months, and then we put it in a bottle, age it about 6 months, and then we put it on the market and let the consumer decide how they like it. But you don't want to over age a Chardonnay and lose the fruitiness of it, the brightness of it. So,
Great.
But if you like Chardonnays that are older, that it's kind of up to the consumer.
Great.
It's great.
All right. While
Aging
we're
up.
moving, go ahead, Toby. Go ahead.
What's that, Chris?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We just suggest that when people come to the tasting room and they buy our Radiance, that they just don't drink it on the way home.
Yes, don't drink it in the car.
At least wait.
Very good. All right. Well, I'm going to give everybody a chance to sort of maybe cleanse their palate, have a cracker or two, and we'll get to the second wine. But while they're doing that, Dr. Bernstein had asked, was wondering how the forest fires had affected your winery.
Thank God not. Thank God. We were not in a fire-prone area. I mean, they have a problem up there in Napa and Sonoma area and Santa Cruz. But we did get a lot of the smoke. But by the time the smoke reached us, it was old enough that it didn't affect the vines. So we do not have any smoke taint.
There were days right where we're at where we couldn't see the sun. And
Yeah. Or across the street.
Wow.
it was a rough year with the
Yeah.
virus and you know, we had the virus and then we had the fires, and we're all going, when's the earthquake gonna happen? We were all we thought, you know, it was the end of the world pretty much.
Well, we're glad you all were safe and that your wineries weren't affected. All right, Toby or Claire, do you want to talk about our second wine, the Zinfandel? And then after you describe that, I'm going to turn it over to Byron Gustin to do a special toast.
Okay, this is important because the first wine I made was Zinfandel. And it was back when not really anybody, you know, they were making white Zin out of Zinfandel. And this is when I was working at a winery, and a friend of mine, a vineyard manager, drove up with 6 tons of grapes. And the owner of the winery didn't want them. Nobody wanted them. So I said, you know, he said, I'll give them to you. They're free. And so I took the wine, you know, it was end of harvest, so there were tanks open. And I made wine out of it, and it smelled like something. We were making raspberry chocolate. You know, who's that chocolate guy? I don't know, but it smelled like a raspberry candy factory. I go, wow, I don't know, man, that's pretty good. And I was just a young guy back then, and so all of a sudden I got a bunch of gold medals, and that's pretty much how Toby and James label started. And the vineyard manager, I'm now married to his daughter, and his other daughter works here at the winery, and it's one of those fairy tale things, really. But Zinfandel is what we kind of hang our hat on. It's got the raspberry, spicy raspberry, really good with anything with pasta sauce on it. The wine, it likes this area, it likes the Paso Robles area. And you know, it used to be white Zinfandels, you know, but now we have Zinfandels that are, you know, $100 or more. So it's taken its rightful place with the other wineries of the area. Claire, do you want to add anything?
So another thing that's really interesting about Zinfandel, because a lot of people say, wait a minute, that's red, is just because of that wine, the white Zinfandel craze. But the most interesting thing is that way back when, at the turn of the century of 1900s, big red Zin was all the big rage, and Paso Robles was already selling commercially Zinfandel grapes and Zinfandel wine. So it really is a heritage grape for California. It's a heritage grape for Paso Robles, and we have so many different expressions of it. We bring in like 45 different Zinfandel vineyards every year, mostly from the west side of Paso Robles. And we do grow a little bit of Zin here at Toby and James, but there's just so many expressions. It's just such a beautiful wine. And we make like, 8, 9 different, including dessert wines. So we have one called Fat Boy. We've got the Ducey Reserve Zin, which is all like very ancient vines, 60 to 90-year-old vines, head pruned, dry farm. And this one is a beauty. This is one of Toby's favorites.
My favorite.
Yes. And this one does have some of that Ducey Zin blended into it. And it's a blend of like just our top vineyards. It's just a gorgeous wine. It's got the pepperiness. It's got velvety. It's got the raspberry, the bright raspberry, and kind of briary and kind of earthy, and everything that you kind of want in a Zinfandel, it's in this bottle. So pick it up and give it a smell. Just
great. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask Byron Gustin, who you heard Dr. Falak talk, introduce a little bit, but as sort of the class representative of the class of 1970, those of you that have been to reunion, you know that sort of the highlight is when we are all in that room down at the West End, and the golden Bearcat class of 50 gets to enter in. And unfortunately, we did not get to do that. So this is going to be the next best thing. He's got the staff, the 50-year staff behind him. So Byron, I'm going to turn it over to you and allow you to raise a glass, and we all will toast the golden Bearcat class of 1970.
Before I make a toast, I want to respond to Dr. Falak. He pointed out that he had to remind me that he'd rotated with me, but I want to just point out that when he rotated with me, he had hair. Now, before, as far as the toast goes, I'd love to toast the class of 1970. I mean, some of our classmates have done wonderful things, but I think this year it's very clear that we have to toast the doctors, nurses, and other medical professions who rose to the challenge of COVID. And here's to them and all of you who are on the front line. God bless you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, and I do like that wine.
I agree. We're seeing a lot of good comments. Thank you, Byron. And I echo your sentiments. So lots of great comments, Toby and Claire. David Salter remarked nice and peppery, and I agree, a little oaky, good finish. Kim Francis, I think, summed it up best. Cheers, yummy wine. I think we all agree with that. So it sounds like everybody is a big fan. Karen Patel, one of my classmates, dry and delicious, smooth, and still light enough to enjoy for a variety of dishes, even for Indian food. So I think we've got a winner. Before we move on to the third wine, I want to just give you, Toby and Claire, how can people get more information? What's your website? If people, I know obviously we ship these wines, and by the way, your customer service was fantastic. I had somebody personally call me on my way home from work about a week ago, making sure I got my wine. So when people want to order this incredible Zin or other wines, how do they go about doing that?
We have an amazing wine club. So that's kind of like the no-brainer to get 16 different wines every year, like 16 of our most amazing, biggest reserve wines. Many of them are only available to our wine club or in the tasting room. That is the easiest way, especially since you guys are not right down the street from us. And it's super reasonable. I mean, the wines, by the time you get them, they're like, over half off. It's incredible. It's like $180 a shipment, plus the shipping is pretty reasonable because we have, the volume. So that's a great way to go. The other way, like if you go on our website, www.tobinjames.com, you could read more about our wine club. We're all like phone crazy. We love to talk to our customers and friends. So never, never, never feel bad about calling us unless it's 3 a.m, but call us 805-239-2204. And even if you're here in the tasting room to try a wine, we would love to walk you through it, describe it to you. We could help you together, whatever you like. So we've got great discounts, very reasonable shipping. And our wine club is, we're the top wine club. We've got over 30,000 members now for a reason, because we just over deliver and everyone loves that. So it's a win-win.
Great. Thank you. All right. I think we are ready to move on to our third wine. So Toby or Claire, if you want to introduce it and tell us a little bit about it.
Okay.
Barbera.
The Zinfandel that the James Gang's in is I like to hang my hat on it, but the Barbera is a close second. It's also an Italian varietal, and I think this one has a little bit more of a blueberry depth to it instead of the raspberry, which gives it a different complexity that might serve better with different foods than the Zin. So they're cousins, but you know, I can just describe it as yummy. I mean, I love it. You don't, if anybody wants to know how I know I like a wine, if I taste it and I think about it and then I want to rub it on my face, then I pretty much know I like it. And this is one of those kind of wines. This has a personable flavor to it and fun to drink.
It's super food friendly. Barbera is like the third most popular grape planted in Italy, and for a great reason, because it's just super food friendly. Everybody loves it. You guys all had Barbera d'Alba, Barbera d'Asti from northern Italy, Piedmonte region. So you know this goes really great with really rich risottos that have like mushrooms and my favorite, truffles. You know, have you guys ever been there in truffle season? So this is the wine, and it's just a really it's a very food friendly wine. It doesn't have the big tannins of like a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's not as structured, but it's big, packed with flavor. Ours is picked really at a nice ripeness level so that you get the real acidity that comes through. It's very juicy and it really cuts through fatty things. You know, that juicy acidity just goes so well with like a big fat grilled ribeye or that risotto I was talking about. This is the wine, so.
And also for the whoever the person that asked about the aging thing, now we can talk about aging here. These three red wines are youthful. Like I said, I kind of like youthful wines, but these will all age really well. And I'm talking, 10 years, but it doesn't mean they're better in 10. They might be better in 5. So always don't overage. It's a magical number, but just so you know, they're age worthy.
So you get like some spice on there, like some baking spice, a little like cinnamon and anise and just a little nutmeg. It's just a beautiful wine. Try it. It's just going to make your mouth water.
And it's a clean wine. It doesn't have anything that pokes out of it that makes it awkward. A wine should be like the wheel on your car. If you have if it's a little bump on it, it kind of starts to wobble. We try to make our wines graceful and fruit flavor forward. And so it's not a wobbly wine. It's got a good balance to it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I think Karen Patel summed it up great. Fragrant like a bouquet of roses, still light with a sweet cherry finish. I agree. It doesn't have the same peppery taste that Zin did, but it's very sweet. I think this is my front runner right now.
Cheers. Cheers.
All right. Well, I think we're going to move on to our last and final wine of the evening. Again, I'm going to let Toby and Claire sort of talk about the wine a little bit, and then I am going to do our second toast of the evening to toast my favorite class, the silver anniversary class of 1995. So Claire and Toby.
Okay, Petite Syrah, right?
Yeah, the Midnight Magic, Petite Syrah.
Okay, so this is one of our sturdier wines, I guess is the word you might use. We like to give our wines. We have a Syrah that I call John Wayne wine. Just a big guy, and he doesn't back up, and this wine doesn't back up. It's got kind of a macho guy thing to it, and this is for our wine lovers that like a big, rich wine. This wine is an infant going into its life, and it's going to be fun to watch it grow up. And this has concentrated flavors. I think you'll see, and you can tell it's got the youthfulness to it. You can tell wine's like a rose. As it gets older, it blossoms, and this one is not blossomed yet, but you can. A lot of times you have to use it like a crystal ball on wine. You taste it and go, I think I know what's going to happen in a year or two with some aging. But if you had a table full of friends and food, and you drank this wine right now, it's great, but it's going to be fun to watch it grow up.
Mm-hmm. That was a great description. Yeah, this is a favorite. It's a sleeper actually, because a lot of wineries, they'll use Petite Syrah just to blend into their Cabernet Sauvignons or their Zinfandels to give them more color, you know, a little bit more structure. Because if you look at this wine, this Petite Syrah, it is like black. It's so beautiful.
It stains
Very
your
opaque.
glass. It'll put a stain in your glass.
And your teeth.
Yeah.
But it's a good stain. It's a good stain. And this Petite Syrah just has, it's just gushing of blueberry. And I love Petite Syrah. It's one of my favorite varietals. And we make 3 different Petite Syrahs. So there's a good reason for that.
Wines are people.
I love that. Guys, before I ask Karen Patel to give us her review of it, there was a question about how long can you cellar this Petite Syrah?
Oh my gosh. I would say anywhere from 5 to 15 years at least.
Yeah, definitely.
But why? It's great. Tastes great. Why?
Don't wait, you know, within 5 years, maybe, you know what you do is you buy a case and then, you know, you try one each year for 12 years and just see how it, you know, if you like to keep track of things like that, but it's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the important thing when people think about aging wine is to age it correctly, because, you know, someone might think, oh, it's okay to be on my kitchen counter, and that's like the worst place, you know, to age a wine. So you always want to make sure that you have it in like 55 degrees or less, like 55 to 40. And you want it dark. You don't want light on it. And you want it laying on its side so that the cork stays moist. So, yeah. But why age it? Love it the way it tastes now. But as Toby says, if you buy a case, you could even open one up every 6 months or something, and you'll just, oh my God, this is like the way I love it.
A wine is different every day because it's one day older. The wines are people too, and you know, they unfortunately grow old and flabby sometimes, you know. So but it's all part of the fun of discovering a wine and see how it does age.
Yeah, that's what makes wine so exciting to us too, because like any other beverage, you know, you don't have that like with a whiskey, you don't have that with a Coca-Cola, you know, this is like just, it's alive, you know, and it's always changing, and it's just so exciting.
You guys, I want to tell you also one thing that's important is you see these wines and you see us as winemakers, but we're farmers. But you know, first and foremost, we're farmers. We're on tractors, and you see the wine guy, the winery guy on TV, and he's swirling. You know, he's not, that guy on TV is not out driving tractors and out in the fields. But I think it is important for people to know what a winemaker, a real winemaker is. Out in the fields, he's filling barrels. It's not a desk job. That's what's fun about it, though. It's what I like about it. Part of the year you're making wine, part of the year you're fermenting it, and part of the year you're growing it. So it's seasonal. It's fun. It's fun that way.
Yeah, it's a great cycle. You know, it just like keeps you very grounded. You know, because you know, okay, this is when bud break's going to happen. You know, all this whole year of events and the bottling and the harvest and, you know, veraison, when they start turning from green to like red, all this is like the same every year, just a little bit of variation depending on the weather conditions. And it's really exciting. It makes years go very quickly though.
It's nerve-wracking.
30 years have gone way too fast.
Right.
Wow. All right. Before we get to our toast of the class of 95, got a couple of questions that I'm going to ask, but first I have to ask. So Karen, I'm going to put you on the spot. Go ahead and unmute. Karen has been graciously reviewing all of the wines. Which of the 4 was your favorite and why?
You got to answer that.
But I think I'd go with the Midnight Magic, honestly, because I like the dry wine and it tastes like a cab to me, but it has something a little extra, a little bit more fruit in it. I think it has a nice finish. So I'd like it with a, you know, nice ribeye or a filet. I thought would be great, and it would carry through the meal. I think it would be fantastic with some herbs on your meal, like rosemary or thyme. It's just a classic. I think-
Excellent. So Toby and Claire, I think if you are looking for somebody to write a blog for you for your website, I think we can hook you up with Dr. Patel. I think she would be a very good addition to Tobin James. So a couple of questions that have come in before we'll sort of end with the toast. So there was a question from Dr. Lewis, she asked her husband's favorite Tobin James was the notorious 2000 Cabs Sauv. Wants to know is that still available?
Yeah, sure, it is still available. We would love to have all our wines here, but it'd be a long Zoom meeting. You'd probably run out of batteries on your computer, but it's still available. And somebody asked what my as I'm Tobin James, and people ask me what my favorite wine is. I say whatever we have most of in the warehouse. So you can't ask me that question. It's not fair. But
Great.
Say what's your best vintage, and I go the one we're currently selling. So don't listen to me, you guys. These are winery jokes, by the way. So
very good. Dr. Bernstein wanted to know, especially since having you grown up in Ohio, although you were in Southern Ohio, not Northern Ohio, but wanted to know what was the inspiration for your label, and wanting to know, were you a James Gang groupie? Were you a Joe Walsh fan? Obviously more from the sort of Northern Ohio, Akron area, but what was the inspiration for the label and the name?
Definitely. Okay, so I don't think it's even been mentioned that my full name is Tobin James Shumrick. So in California, nobody knows my last name is Shumrick because they think I'm Tobin James, basically. And the sun, like I mentioned earlier, this is the sun setting over the hills of Paso Robles. This label, I was probably 25 years old and I didn't have any money. And one guy came up and said, I'll design a label for you. It's $50,000. And I'm like, I've got 50 cents in my pocket. So I went down to our local college, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and I did a pegboard. Somebody want to design my label, and a student design. I told him what I wanted and he did the design, and we've tried to change it 100 times, but we go right back to the same one we've always had. And we're really proud of the label. It's simple, but it shows, the Paso area. But this logo, the sun it's pretty famous all over I can walk around in Europe and people, they see the sun and they go, oh, Tobin James, it feels good that we sell our wines in, I think, 5 countries in most of our states in the United States.
There was a comment from Pat Vaccaro. It says, my favorite is whatever you're pouring. So question for you, because now some of you may be able over the next hour to finish all 4 of these bottles. I probably will not, or I will be under the table by then. So as far as sort of corking these and how long are these wines going to be good for after this evening if we recork them?
Okay, so if you do not have like a wine preserver, the best thing you could do is just press the cork into the bottle and put it in your refrigerator. And it kind of gets in like the suspended animation. So it'll, let you have that wine for at least a couple more days, where it's not sacrificed on the quality and the taste.
It could.
And that's both the red and the white in the refrigerator?
Go ahead, Chris.
Tony.
These wines will be better tomorrow because we didn't pour it into a decanter, but we put a gap in the bottle. So I promise you these wines will taste better tomorrow. And I've seen doctors drink, and I think that they won't make it through the weekend. So it'll be perfect timing. They won't go bad on you.
So sort of a follow-up question that Pat Vaccaro had posted. What do you think of the Corvain?
What? I'm sorry?
What was that?
The Corvain?
Corvain.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I said it wrong. It is Corvain. I'm so sorry.
I think they're really good. We just drink too much wine to really make a whole lot of sense of that. I mean, we always have these wine tastings with our staff. So we open lots of bottles of wine, not Tobin James wines, but wines from all over the world. And we just don't we have no use for that, but I think it's a great tool, you know, like where you could put the little, it's like giving a shot through your cork, and you don't have to sacrifice the quality of the wine just to take out a glass, and then maybe a week or two later you try another glass. It's a good thing.
Great. Another related question. How do you go about choosing your cork material? And you know, do you ever do a screw top that Dr. Natali had put in? Ever use a screw top like in Australia, or New Zealand?
Well,
you know what, I think screw caps are wonderful, but it's not where Toby James wants to be. We like traditional cork, and we have used like synthetic corks, but they're on wines like Rieslings that you don't age it hardly at all. You bottle them and then you drink them. But we like the fact that natural cork off of the best cork trees.
Portugal.
And we like the fact that you're with your family, your friends, and you're uncorking the wine. Game, Toby. And you hear the cork game. Yeah, well, we have a game, but you know, it's fun to open a bottle of wine. It's all presentation is part of wine and part of the fun of it. You guys, I call it the F's. You know, wine is for food, family, friends. I don't know. There's a couple of F's, other F's. I don't know, but it's you know, wines when you guys worked hard all day, and you get home and there's the smell of cooking in your castle, and you open that bottle of wine with some food that you've made, and it really makes life, you know, a lot more fun and satisfying.
Great question from one of our more recent graduates from the class of 2015, and asking any recommendations for those sort of first getting into wine, realizing that some of our alums that are on this Zoom call are a little bit more junior in their career and sort of just starting out, so may not have some of the same financial resources that some of the those of us that have been in practice for longer.
I have a really good go to a really nice little wine shop and talk to like the owners or the people that really know the wines in that wine shop, and just taste wines. The biggest thing that you could do is learn your palate. And no one can tell you, oh my gosh, you know, this $400 wine is the best wine, because you might like a wine that's $25. And it's up to you and your own palate. And the more you taste different wines, the more you'll discover. And don't feel intimidated, especially, you know, I know in like doctor circles that you might be more attuned to, you know, having more expensive wines, but just, it's all about you and what you enjoy. So never be afraid, go to a wine shop, let them learn your palate, and then you'll trust their recommendations to try other wines. And then of course, if you really, really want to get into wine, you call Toby James and you try all of our wines.
You guys, important. The more it costs, the more you're probably not going to like it.
Except ours.
But the price of a wine, it kind of doesn't mean anything, because you know, a lot of winery owners have these big egos, and so they could never sell their wine for $20 or $30. They have to charge $150 because that's where their ego's at. We don't do that here. We make wine for everybody. So
we do have some high reserves though. In fact, the newest blend that we have that we sent out in our wine club shipment, it's called The Blend, and it's like off the charts. It's been flying out since people have received it. And that one is $125 a bottle, but
just practice.
Practice makes perfect.
We'll let John put his question in the chat box, and then we'll respond to that. And then I'm going to do sort of our final toast of the evening. And then I think we're going to break into our breakout rooms. Mary Jo, is that correct? While John's typing his question into the chat box, I'll suggest to Mary Jo, I know that some of the other colleges, especially I'm a dual grad from arts and sciences, and they often have alumni trips. I think we need to organize a College of Medicine alumni trip out to Tobin James Cellars. I'm just going to throw that out there, and I'll let Mary Jo start working on that.
We would love to have you guys out.
Great.
We would love to have you guys out. we welcome you guys. It would be really fun. I think that you would love pastorals, and I know you'd love Toby James Cellars.
It's
There you go,
easy.
Mary Jo.
It's an easy flight. There's easy flights.
Mary Jo will make it happen. All right, so we are waiting while John is sort of typing his question. I'm going to sort of do the last toast of the evening. This is going to be, I'm actually going to do a couple of different things. So first off, I have to toast my class, and I'm really thrilled that many of you were able to take some time. I know there's some of us on our on the West Coast and weren't able to make it, but it has been so nice, and with the sort of the advent of social media, we have our class has a Facebook page, so it's been nice to sort of catch up and keep up with each other. So I can't believe it's been 25 years. I'm just amazed at all of the amazing things all of you have done. So that is going to be the first group I'm going to raise a glass to. The second group is Mary Jo, because this would not have happened without her. I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure how this was going to be received or worked out. And it has been, I hope you all have enjoyed it as much as I have. It has been phenomenal. And really this is all, as in everything that has to do with our alumni functions, has to do with not only Mary Jo, but Kim and Gabe and Dolo and Katie and everybody in the foundation, in the alumni group. And then finally, I want to toast Toby and Claire, because this has just been outstanding. I will tell you that Mary Jo and I did a wine tasting not too long ago, and that paled in comparison to the information that you all provided. So thank you to my class, to Mary Jo and the foundation staff and alumni development staff, and to Toby and Claire at Tobin James. So I'll raise a glass. Here, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh,
We're
thank you.
honored to be with you.
Thank you very much.
So Dr. Keefe I'm going to sort of end with one last question before I turn it over to Mary Jo for us to break out into our class breakout rooms. John was wondering do you know what the penetration is in the market here in Cincinnati? Can we request Tobin James at local restaurants in obviously Cincinnati, but also maybe sort of penetration in other cities and what your availability is?
The best thing you can ever do for us is go in and ask for it, because then the consumer, the owner is like, oh, it's Tobin James, but it's a tricky market for us. The best way to get our wines is just call us, and it goes right to your doorstep. And a lot of the wines that we make, some of these wines that you tried tonight, we only sell out of our tasting room, or we don't sell them like to wholesalers all over the United States, because we don't make enough. So the best way is to call us to make sure you get the wine. It's getting transported straight from the winery to your doorstep, not going through other channels and maybe sitting in hot trucks or whatever. So
Great. Claire, anything else to add before we split everybody up into their individual class breakout rooms?
For all you guys who can't call during regular business hours, our time, you can always go online too, to our online store at www.tobinjames.com, and you could shop at 3 in the morning in your underwear, and you could get the wines that way too. But we do prefer if you call us and we could yak with you.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Before I turn it over to Mary Jo, so she's gonna sort of talk about the breakout rooms. We are going to come back together briefly at the end for a large group. So as we go into our breakout rooms, I'm gonna ask each class, when we come back, I want a large group report out of what you guys need to decide what your favorite wine of the 4 was. So you can drink any of the 4 wines or all of the 4 wines in your breakout rooms. But I want each class to sort of come up with a class wine that is sort of their class wine. Mary Jo, do you want to talk about sort of how we're going to get to our breakout rooms?
Sure will. So Tyler, if you could put that slide up for us with the breakout rooms.
Oh, and special thanks to Tyler too. I'm sorry, I was remiss. Tyler is our behind the scene to sort of organize and is doing all of the technology for us. So thank you, Tyler.
He is, and he has everybody all set. So it's going to be like magic, I hope, a snap of a fingers, and we will go into our breakout rooms. Each of the rooms will have a room host. We'll start out the process with a little bit of trivia to see what you remember from your days at the UC-Com. And then absolutely, we'll take the time to catch up, get a little bit of information from everybody on where they are in life, and just kind of open it up and just have fun. It's really all about you guys catching up with one another. So enjoy
And
your
MJ,
time.
I think we're going to do about 45 minutes in the breakout rooms and then come back together to sort of wrap up and the evening, correct?
That is correct. Thanks, Chris.
Great. We'll see everybody in about 45 minutes.
Thanks.